I love my husband and we've been together for decades. And I think we have a really good relationship. And for me to say that out loud and have it be recorded, it really triggers me because my mother took away everything that mattered to me. Hello and welcome to How to Be a Terrible Daughter, podcast where we hate your parents for you. We're going to joke about our horrible childhoods and we're going to talk about how we survive them and we're going to share the tools we've learned along the way. Who are we? I'm Elizabeth. Who are we? Who are we, Megan? I'm Elizabeth. I'm a psychotherapist and a graphic designer and a podcaster and a professional parent hater. Megan, who are you?
I just realized that question of like, who are you is totally tinged when you have like a fear of being perceived. Like, I'm no one. I don't exist.
Totally. How many tracks do I need to cover right now?
Right, exactly.
What have you been told about me?
Right, exactly. If I introduce myself and that contradicts something that my mother has said about me, am I going to be in trouble? I'm Megan.
Yes.
We can't even
You're
get
going
to
to be
the
in trouble
intro of this podcast without drama. I'm Megan. I am an energy healer and a medical intuitive and an occupational therapist and an aspiring professional parent hater.
I think you're professional grade.
Am I?
Professional grade. Yes.
All right. Yeah, that's true.
Absolutely.
All right.
I think you're great at it. In fact, you taught me how to do a little bit of that before I was ready to. So.
Really? Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Wow. I'm a bad, good influence. All right.
You
good.
are. You're a good, bad influence. Bad, good, good, bad.
And we are cousins.
Cousins. Oh my God, we did it.
We grew up in LA together, watching each other's batshit fucked up crazy mothers do batshit crazy fucked up things. And so we have a very unique point of view.
Unique is one word for it.
Yes, it is.
Your deal.
Yeah. So today we wanted to talk about what a healthy romantic relationship looks like versus what we were trained to tolerate as kids, right? Because, you know, as every therapist will tell you, a lot of times the patterns that play out with your romantic partners are echoes of the patterns that played out in childhood when you first learned how to have relationships with people, i.e. your parents. And if your parents weren't able to teach you or model for you how to have a healthy relationship, then you never learn. And you end up trying to find a relationship only to find yourself repeating the same patterns you had as a kid because you really just don't know any different. You never had the opportunity to learn what it would look like to have a healthy relationship. So you don't know what to look for, right? You don't even know what that feels like.
Yeah.
So you go for what's familiar and what you know, which is what humans do, right?
Yeah. The media doesn't help you either because you get these fairy tales which don't say anything after the initial bloom, right? And then to be perfectly honest, a lot of our culture is written by men and they have no idea what it's like to have internal experiences to the same degree and don't know how to create really deep and connected relationships over time.
Yeah.
I'm just going to say that.
Damn you, patriarchy. Patriarchy, it does. It robs men. What's that saying? It's like patriarchy's first wound to men is robbing them of their own internal emotional experience or something like that. I'm bastardizing that quote. I think it's bell hooks.
I feel that, yeah.
This podcast today is not about patriarchy, but we could easily do a podcast all about patriarchy and the narcissistic tendencies that are inherent in that system. But we're not. Maybe another day. If you want to hear that podcast, let us know. That it will be a 4-hour episode because once I start talking about that, I can't stop. But anyway, so we wanted to talk about relationships and romantic relationships and what it looks like to have a healthy relationship. But we wanted to put a big caveat at the beginning, which is that this is something that for people who have gone through the kind of abuse that you and I have, and that many of our listeners have, this is a lifelong thing that we're trying to figure out, right? Again, we
Yeah.
didn't learn these things as kids. We're trying to learn them as adults, but it takes a long time to sort of undo what you were taught and learn the new, healthier ways. It's not like a one and done. It's a process that evolves over years. So we're both still trying to figure this out. This is not something that I feel like I've mastered or, but we wanted to share what we knew so far. And this is something that a lot of listeners had requested that we talk about. So we're going to do our best to talk about this topic.
Yeah. Yeah. It's another one of those blank space things in my head. And oftentimes in my head, I don't think I know anything about healthy relationships until I talk to someone and they tell me that they're having a conflict with their partner. And I'm like, I cannot believe that they did that. You know what I mean? And then I can't believe that you can't solve it this way or that way. Right? Can I talk about my relationship a little bit? Is that okay?
Sure.
Okay. I will say that I feel really weird about this because I love my husband and we've been together for decades. And I think we have a really good relationship. And for me to say that out loud and have it be recorded, it really triggers me because my mother took away everything that mattered to me.
Mm-hmm.
So either by literally taking it away or destroying it or making it impossible for me to see the good in something. Right. Mm-hmm. So she would tell me if she heard me say I had a great relationship and I was proud of it, she would tell me the 100 reasons why it was terrible and why it was wrong.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah, you do have a good relationship, by the way. As an outside observer, I think that you guys, I really appreciate that you have, in a lot of ways, thrown out any kind of heteronormative rule book for how romantic relationships are supposed to look. And because heteronormativity and patriarchy, my God, I'm talking about it again, aren't I? Is rooted in narcissistic systems, throwing that away and making your own rules is, I think, a really important part of healing from the trauma, right? Because if you are finding yourself in a relationship where, especially as a woman in a relationship with a man, where you are reenacting some of those power dynamics that are inherent to narcissism just through heteronormative relationship roles.
Yeah.
That in and of itself can make it hard to see the forest for the trees in having a good relationship.
Oh, yeah. Well, if your job in your relationship is to bolster up the other person's gender, that already hurts the relationship. So my memories of being in relationships with men, and Eric is technically a man, but my other relationships, I always had to be the girl. And at the time, I couldn't really figure out all of the little ways that was the case. But with Eric, I didn't have to be. I didn't have to play the girl and he didn't have to play the boy. And that left us two people together, basically not having to prop any false image up or anything like that. That's one sort of overarching global thing that feels really, really good.
Yeah. And I think to that point, it sort of feeds into the first little bullet point we wrote down about this, which is that healthy relationships, both people get turns being centered. And again, in a traditional male-female relationship, men tend to get centered, right? And so there is sort of this, when you do develop this healthy relationship, there is an undoing a little bit of the traditional roles because both people should be able to have their time where they're centered. Both people should be able to get the same level of mutual care and respect. Both people should be able to be strong at times. Both people should be able to be vulnerable at times. Both people should be able to put their needs on the table and have them met with an equal amount of attention and care. And so I think that one of the things that you've done is really do that pretty effectively, right, in your relationship.
Well, I do think that one of the things that was really helpful was that we got together when I was in graduate school. And so when I was learning, taking my couples counseling class and that kind of a thing, I would just bring home, like I'd bring home the iMessages and I'd bring home the like all these things and we would just practice them together. And so it made it less, well, threatening, I think. I think that partners who are not doing their personal work feel threatened by learning a new tool or a new communication pattern as a way to work on the relationship because the relationship is a project. Well, actually, no. What was I saying? I was saying you want to feel like you're on a team as opposed to your relationship being a shitty group project, right? Yeah. So you have this thing together that the two of you come equally to it. And I think working on it sounds really kind of boring, but nurturing the relationship as a separate thing, right?
Yeah.
Is pretty important, like being kind and protecting it and making sure the relationship gets what it needs. And that includes each person getting what they need.
Yeah. And prioritizing the relationship over being right.
100%.
I think that a lot of times when couples start fighting, especially when there's unhealthy power dynamics like we grew up with, like the narcissist always has to be right. And they have to make you wrong and make you feel ashamed of it, right? So being able, to keep in your mind, okay, what's the big why behind this? The big why behind this is that we're trying to cultivate a better relationship. We're trying to help this relationship grow. And that is sort of like, it doesn't really matter who's right and who's wrong in that case, right?
Right.
Because that's not sort of the litmus test at the end of the day.
Yeah.
You brought up two things that I liked, your two questions that I liked. You said a good sort of way to gauge is, do I like this person? And then do I like who I am with this person?
Right.
Because I think one of the things that is always true, I'll say always true, if you're in a relationship with a narcissist, is you end up start doing things or thinking in a certain way where you don't like who you are.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're compromising yourself, you're bargaining, you're feeling shitty about yourself, you're feeling isolated and alone in the relationship, right? So really being like, does this person make me feel better about who I am? Not just through like compliments or, things like that, but really just the interaction, the way you guys interact. Do I feel better when I'm with this person?
Yeah. Is this a person that, well, I know for me, because depending on your role in your family, you have to pretend to be a superhero parts of the time. Can this person love you and nurture you when you are not the superhero? You know what I mean? When you're the Clark Kent or whatever, can you like sit down and cuddle and, talk, and you don't have to be particularly important or great?
Yeah. How do they react to you when you bring up something that's a problem? That's a big one, right? Because if this person is really prioritizing you being happy in the relationship and prioritizing the relationship, they will be curious and compassionate, even if it's something that hurts them, right? Or sort of cuts to the core a little bit. Like even if you're bringing up something that maybe they're a little insecure about or that they don't like about themselves or they don't see about themselves, right? I don't do that, right? But instead of getting defensive, it's this, okay, well, my priority is making sure that my partner feels loved and safe. So I'm going to listen to this, at the end of listening to it, I may not agree with it, but I'm at least going to listen and be curious and not immediately be like, what are you talking about? I don't do that, right?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. The other thing too is, do they preemptively seem aware of your needs and your moods? Right? So again, a narcissist has no idea what anyone else, they don't understand that other people around them have needs or, could be in a mood independent of them that has, just because they are a person with emotions. Are they able to be like, hey, you seem like something's wrong today. Are you okay? Or you have a long day at work and you come home and they have, are either cooking you dinner or have made you dinner or ordering takeout or something, right? Like they are aware of your challenges in life or when you may be having a hard time and they step in without being asked. And it's not love bombing. It's not you come home and there's 24 roses for no reason. It's you come home and there's 24 roses because you just finished your last day of grad school. Do you know what I mean? Like there's a connection there. They're
Yeah.
paying attention to what's happening in your life. And the nice things that they do are in response to you, to your specific needs, right?
Yeah.
Which love bombing is not. Love bombing is just, I'm going to be nice to you to try to win you over.
You said something that like I really want to add to. So like a dozen roses. It's one of those things where like the gifts that a narcissist will give are showy, but ultimately useless. Right. So it's like when the person comes home with roses or whatever, and you just needed them to do the dishes, and the dishes are still not done.
Yeah.
But now they've done something for you that, well, isn't this is what a good partner does, and it's like, well, but you just actually do the non-glamorous thing.
Yeah, because narcissists are essentially play acting in relationships. They don't actually know how to relate to people. So they don't know how to actually pay attention to what you need or what you would like, right? They just,
Yeah.
They've read somewhere that good partners bring you flowers, and so they do that. And they get mad at you when you're not appreciative because, the dishes aren't done, the baby's crying, you haven't had a shower in 3 days. But, you're ungrateful if you then say, I would rather have that than flowers,
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. So we wanted to start by talking about healthy relationships. Is there anything else you want to add before we move on to the traumatic part of the show, part 2, trauma, talking about what unhealthy relationships look like?
Don't make me go there. I think that being seen accurately is really important, which is kind of a different way of talking about what we've already been talking about, right? Which is, so your partner is looking at your life and can see what's going on and see you as a separate person and work towards helping you with the things that are important to you. So like, doing the dishes helps you, or, I know that today is going to be a tough day at work. So I'm going to make sure to have things nice at home, those kinds of things. But the idea is like to be seen accurately. And what I want to say is that oftentimes children of narcissists feel like all that they're asking for, no matter what it is too much, right? Because we're basically told that we don't deserve anything. And we're afraid of asking for things. But most of the time, because of that, what we ask for is not the moon. We don't ask for the moon. We ask for the simple things.
Yeah.
And to be seen, but not seen accurately is also very painful. So for example, I'll just take that. Like, you need them to do the dishes. And what they do is they change the oil in the car. Right?
Yeah.
It's like, okay, yes, that needed to be done. But I asked you 3 times to do the dishes and you said that you would do them. And now you've taken that time. Does that make sense? So it's like, and well-meaning people, not just narcissists, do things like that where they don't see you accurately. And that's something that can be worked on in the relationship, right? With a combination of iMessages and reflective listening and all of that kind of stuff. But you deserve to be not just seen, but accurately seen.
Yeah.
Ask for that. Go for that.
Yeah. And also, you said it's hard for us to ask for what we need, which is absolutely true. A healthy, safe relationship, when you ask for what you need, you should be met with care and understanding. You should never feel like you're being too demanding or too needy or asking too much because, as you said, as children of narcissists, I guarantee you we're not asking for too much. We're probably asking for something that,
too little.
The bare minimum, too little, right?
Yeah.
And so if you say like, hey, I asked you to do the dishes 3 times and you changed the oil in the car, you should be met with, you're right, you did. Not, well, but I changed the oil in the car, right? Like your needs should be met with, again, curiosity and compassion.
Yeah.
Curiosity and compassion. Because, I guarantee you're not asking for too much. It is not that you are being needy or ungrateful or, if you are listening to this podcast and you had a parent who is a narcissist, I can pretty much guarantee you that you're not asking for too much.
100%. And also, I will say that, and I know you probably know this, but a healthy relationship is not when you get what you want. So let's say it's the oil change, dishes thing. The conversation may end up being something like, okay, this is why I didn't do the dishes. Like, I know someone who actually has a real icky sensory issue with dirty water and stuff like that. And it's like, I have a hard time making myself do the dishes. What I mean is being accountable. Like, you're right. I didn't do that thing. And I said that I would. I'm not sure I can actually do it. Or can we negotiate something? Can I take on this other thing and you do the dishes because it gives me the ick, right? And then you actually, to kind of go back to our last episode, that's actually how you solve the problem, right? And then it's okay, well, you're each doing the same amount of work, but you've divided it up in a way that's actually reasonable and takes, everybody into account. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. I think that, the main thing here is that both parties feel accurately seen and heard and met with curiosity, care, and compassion.
100%.
Right? So it's not necessarily how the argument pans out. Or again, going back to this isn't about somebody being right and somebody being wrong. It's about feeling understood and cared for, right? And loved in the way that feels good to you, right? Somebody taking the time to understand what it would feel like for me to be cared for, not what they think being cared for is. Does that make sense?
Yeah. You get to bring your own imperfect selves to the relationship, and there's room and love for all of that.
Yes. And your imperfections and your vulnerabilities and the things you're still working on and your trauma, again, are met with care and compassion, right? There is room for you to not be perfect and not have that be met with shame or defensiveness or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk about what unhealthy relationships look like. And this is again, what we were trained to tolerate or accept, or what we were modeled as, what a relationship should look like as, when we were kids. So if you're doing these things, it's fine. You're just still learning because you never had good modeling, right? So it's a process, as we said. So the first thing that we wrote down, which I think is really, really true, are you doing a lot of thinking about how you bring things up to them, right? So if they didn't do the dishes, are you thinking about okay, well, I don't want to bring it up to them right after work because they're tired. And, I want to make sure that they're in a good mood. And, when I bring it up, I'm going to bring it up super casually. Hey, by the way, I don't know if you heard me when I asked you to do the dishes. Maybe you didn't hear me, but right. So you're really doing a game plan of how you're going to bring things up to them. That is definitely a sign that you are in a relationship that is not as healthy as it could be, because, in a relationship that's healthy, you can bring things up when they're bothering you. And again, you bring them up, you don't scream at the person, right? I mean, well, it depends what they did, I suppose, but you bring them up in a relatively neutral way. Hey, it really bothered me when you didn't do the dishes, right? But you don't have to game plan out when that happens. You say it when you notice it. And if they are in a place where it's not a good time for them to talk about it, then it is up to them to say, you know what? I just got home from work. I am so overwhelmed. I hear you, but can we set a time to talk about this later? Because now I don't have the bandwidth. Yeah. It's not your responsibility to monitor their bandwidth, right? Or whether they have the ability to have that conversation. That is up to them, right? So
I have to say, I still do some of that. I do some of that. But when I do give the feedback, I don't get defensiveness back. And I get I'm really glad that you told me. You know what I mean? You can tell me sooner. You don't have to wait so long next time. You know what I mean? The encouragement is there to not hold things in. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And I think to your point, it takes, so let's say we live with our narcissistic parent, at least for the first 18 years of our life. That's 2 decades. It probably takes 2 decades of being with a healthy partner, being thank you for telling me, you can tell me sooner, before we undo the damage that was done, right?
Yeah.
It takes a while. It takes a lot of evidence and time before we actually believe like, oh, this is different, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah. The other thing to look at is, are you managing most of the logistical and emotional details of your lives? So are you,
Ladies, this one's for you.
I was going to say, we're getting back into the heteronormativity thing. Apparently, this episode is about patriarchy. But yeah, are you finding that you are taking on more of the emotional and logistical labor in the relationship? That is something that, these things ebb and flow. There's times in our lives when we have more bandwidth and times we have less bandwidth. Like maybe you're in grad school, you have less bandwidth, right? Or you just had a kid or something. And so, of course, these things are going to shift over time in a long-term relationship of who is planning things, who is taking on, but it should be over time. It should even out, right? It should be relatively similar. And again, like you said, some people have strengths and weaknesses. So like, maybe one person really does do all of the appointments and all of the, planning because they've got better executive function, right? Well, but that should mean that the other partner, takes up some of the burden the other way. So maybe they're the person that actually drives to all the appointments, or, you know what I mean? Like there's got to be something, so this isn't saying like everything has to be divided up 50-50, but my point is that in the relationship, you shouldn't feel like, wow, I'm doing way more than my partner. Like that shouldn't be the consistent feeling. You know?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So that's another sign. This one, when we put this down on the paper, I laugh, but it's absolutely true that a narcissist or someone with narcissistic tendencies would not know this. Do they know the names of your friends? Do they know who they are? Do they know your hobbies? Do they know like your food preferences? Do they know, what type of TV shows or movies you like? Do they know, things like that? Just basic things that they should know about you if they're in a relationship with you for any length of time, right?
Yeah.
I don't think growing up that my mother could have named more than one or two of my friends. She just had no idea, right?
Right. Well, yeah. And that was good, actually, because you were probably protected by her not knowing.
Right. Well, and so, yeah, some of that is, I learned to keep it from her, but she was not curious. She never asked or, she never, So, yeah, just a basic awareness of who you are as a person and like what your likes and dislikes are and what you do with your time and what your interests are, what your dreams are, right? Like, a healthy partner, if someone says, hey, what places are on your partner's travel bucket list, right? Or what types of things, would they love to do at some point in their life? A healthy partner should be able to rattle off at least one or two or three of those things, right? Even if it's not specific, it could be like, oh, well, I know they love museums, so I'm sure they'd love to go, travel and visit museums around the world. Do you know what I mean? They'd be able to like extrapolate. They know enough about you to be able to appropriately give a good answer that was actually true and accurate, right? So, yeah, that's another good one.
So, can they protect your peace and privacy? So, part of the issue is you yourself and the relationship need protecting, right? So, how do I put this? There's some quote, I can't remember what it is, about how real love is protecting the solitude of your partner, right? And that's literal, right? So like you need alone time, they need alone time, negotiating that, right, is a way of respecting the other person and you being respected in turn. And then also for a healthy relationship, there needs to be a very clear boundary between you as a couple and the rest of the world. Okay, so I will say, if you are in a polyamorous relationship, it's not a couple. So I will just say that like your romantic relationship, if it's like long term, if it's meaningful, right? Sometimes you need to choose the relationship over commitments or what other people say and do. So, and I this isn't like a hard and fast rule, but first of all, like your narcissist will want to get in there and destroy it. So, for example, I never, ever, ever shared with my mom anything negative about Eric. ever. I never,
Mhm.
even when we were in conflict or if I was uncertain about something or stressed out or whatever, I never told her anything
Right.
because I knew that she was not a safe person. And that was one way that I protected the relationship,
Hmm.
right? Also, things like if you hear something about your relationship from someone else, right? Or you hear about something that your partner did or said or whatever, you go check in directly and be like, hey, I heard this. Is this true? What's going on? Right?
Hmm.
Not assuming the worst and not assuming that other people know better, right, than
Yeah.
what's between the two of you.
Yeah.
There's other ways that I can't quite put my finger on. Do you have a sense about what like a good boundary would be in a relationship to make sure that it is special and important, independent of the other relationships in your lives?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's sort of being able to listen to and understand your partner when they're asking you to prioritize the relationship in a specific way. So if you have
Yeah.
plans, let's say you have a weekly bowling league that you go to, right? Or, I don't know, trivia
Yeah.
game or something. And your partner says, you know what, I've had a hard day. Can you stay home with me? Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Being able to say, yeah, you know what? This is more important than my trivia league, right? And you're willing to cancel on plans at the last minute or whatever because your partner has, again, made this is, and it's hard for us children of a narcissist, but made their needs known. I need you to prioritize me. And
Yeah.
that they do so. And again, real world situations, it's always different, but that they're willing to, if not do that, sit down and have a conversation and say, I don't know that I can do that, but I don't want you to feel bad. So what's another solution? Do you want to come with me? Do you know what I mean? Like that you're actually heard, right? And that
Yeah.
you feel like your feelings matter. Another thing we wrote down here is that when you do bring up your concerns, if they make you feel like you're too much or you're asking too much or you're being too demanding or you're asking at an inappropriate time, like, they're overwhelmed or they have something else to do or whatever, that somehow what you're asking is inappropriate or too much, like that's another sign that this is not a healthy relationship, right? They
Yeah.
don't have to answer right at the moment. If you are asking them at a time when they're completely overwhelmed, it's perfectly fine to say, you know what, I don't have the bandwidth or I don't have the ability to answer this right now. Or, could even be like, I'm really angry or frustrated right now. I don't think right now is the best time to talk about this, but like, let's plan a time to talk about this later, right? Let me cool
Mm-hmm.
off a little bit, right? But that you never feel like what you're asking for is too much. That's very important. And that they're willing to do just as much work on the relationship, right? So that if you do bring something up, they're not like, oh, you're always bringing things up and it's just, right? It's too much or whatever, right?
What you're saying brings up something that I found really helpful because what I heard was like, oh, mom, dad, or whatever, like the other partner's the teenager or the kid, like the snotty
Mhm.
teenager, and like you're the adult. So a really good functioning relationship works when most of the time, you are both adults and can adult together, or you are both kids and you can kid together.
Mm.
And then sometimes one person needs to be the grown up and the other person needs to be the kid because the kid is the person who's going through something. And you know what I mean? Like they're struggling with something and the other person might need to take on the role for a little bit. Right. But that's for a little bit. And I mean, like little bit, not even like days. I mean, unless like they've gone through surgery or something like that, where it's like there's like this recovery process, but it's like an unhealthy relationship often is that one person is the kid and the other person is the grown up the whole time, pretty much.
Yeah.
And in the beginning of relationships, a lot of times it really is like, two kids together, right? But if over time, what ends up happening is life gets in the way and you end up being the grown up all the time, that's not healthy at all.
And that transition from, sort of just the first, like, dating and you're just having fun and you're going out and just enjoying each other's company. And then at some point, if the relationship keeps going, there ends up being commitments and responsibilities that come into play, right? And
Yeah.
so what you're looking for is this person able to keep those commitments? Are they able to step up to the responsibilities that you need as you start enmeshing your life more and more with this person, right? And having, things that you need to do together, right? Like maybe enmeshing's the wrong word, but sort of growing interdependence, thank you. But growing yourself as a couple. So like RSVPing to a party as a couple, right? Are they able to actually like show up, be there, be in a good mood with your friends, right? Are they able to actually show up as like you said, as a grown up? Or do they have a hard time, right? If you move in together, right? Are they able to do half of the housework? Are they able to take care of half of the, like, again, paying the bills or making the appointments or whatever, right? Like, are they able to do that stuff? That's really important because we were always shamed and blamed for asking for that, right?
Yeah.
And so, we're used to just taking it on by default because we learned just to do that, right? Just to be super hyper independent and do everything ourselves and not expect that anyone else would keep their commitment or be responsible or, whatever, right? So
Yes.
Finding a partner and so I think that we tend to, without even thinking about it, take on those roles and end up with people that don't do their fair share because we're just so used to doing it on our own, right?
Yeah.
So really making sure that you are with a person that when you, are sort of trying to figure out how to divvy things up, or when you ask them to show up for you in a way, I mean, like that could be literally like, please show up at this dinner party that my friend is having, right? That they show up and that they're an adult and that they're as the best self they can be that day, right?
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of times when we grow up, we pick relationships where at least we're not getting verbally and psychologically abused, right?
Yeah.
So we're not getting yelled at. So it's better than it was. You can ask for more, right? It's a relationship, not a suicide pact. You can leave even a good relationship if it's not enough.
Yeah.
If you're, you know what I mean? Like if your soul is taking you somewhere.
Elizabeth, stop reading me for filth, please, and talking about how all of my relationships ended.
I actually really admire you for that. I think that's amazing. No, I do. Like, I think it's great. So I just, it's okay for you to grow out of a relationship and have nothing being terribly wrong or them not being a horrible person for you to end it. You're the captain of your own soul. And I think sort of the other thing is that women are taught that romantic relationship is a replacement for dreams and hopes and goals.
Yeah.
And what you want is you want your partner to be someone who supports your own dreams and goals, does not sabotage them, and is really like your back. So what I would suggest is thinking about what would it be like if you had a wife, right? And like if you had someone who, like who did all of the things that a wife would do, not that you necessarily want an unequal relationship, right? Because the heterosexual, ideal is unequal, but it's a good mental exercise, right? Because then you can start thinking about how little you're actually asking for and that it's actually quite reasonable to ask for more.
Oh, you mean what you would ask for if you had a wife? Like what that would look like?
Well, yeah. Yeah. Or yeah, just like if you had a partner who had your back and sort of did things for you the way that you were doing things for your partner, how would that be?
Yeah. Yeah.
If you had someone to do all of your laundry and make your doctor's appointments for you and, pick up your kids and make you dinner and arrange all of your social, things. And you know what I mean? Like if you had someone like that, how would that feel?
Yeah. And what would you be doing with your life if you had that person? Like what would your goals and dreams be that you could achieve? Yeah.
Yeah.
Because we're so used to doing for others that I think sometimes we forget, like, what would I do if I was fully supported? And that's what a healthy relationship should be. It should be being fully supported to the best of that other person's ability,
Yep.
So, All right. Are you ready for Crazy Mom Off?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Do you want to go first or should I go first?
I'll go first. It's a short one.
Okay.
So Eric and I got married on the 10-year anniversary of our first date. And my parents did not meet his parents until the rehearsal dinner.
So why?
I knew that my mother was going to ruin it. I knew that if she had known everybody and that Eric and I at some point would have broken up.
Yeah.
Because the pressure would have been just too much. And so I made that decision and Eric agreed with me. So yeah.
Good for you. Yeah. I mean, you have to sort of prevent the narcissists from being able to get their claws in things,
Yes.
because they will rip it apart. They will rip it apart.
100%. 100%.
So protecting your relationship by keeping them as far away from your partner or any of their relatives or anyone they know is a really smart move.
Yeah.
Very smart move.
Worked out well. It worked out well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wise. Very wise. I'm impressed you pulled it off, too. Like, that's 10 years is a long time. Because I know she asked, when am I going to get to meet Eric's parents? I'm sure she asked. I'm sure she asked. So
she didn't just ask. She would just be like, well, I'm going to invite them to Hawaii or whatever. Like, she'd try to pull these, like, huge,
Like, right. She's being the good
love
person.
bombing.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Sorry, they're allergic to the sun. They can't leave the house.
Yep.
Okay, that's a good one. And I'm proud of you. And I think that's wise strategy and good advice for anyone out there is keep your narcissistic parent the fuck away from your relationship as much as possible.
Yep.
Okay, so mine is a crazy mom story, but then it's followed up by something that my partner at the time did that I felt like was very kind and understanding in a way that was also incredibly trauma informed. And so I sort of wanted to share the whole story. So this actually took place at your grandmother's funeral.
Yeah.
Her grandmother died. And I'd been no contact with my mom for, 10 years at that point, probably. A long time. A long time. So I really hadn't talked to her and seen her in years and years and years. And I fly down to LA for the funeral with my partner. I don't want to name him because I don't know. So we're going to call him Atticus, my partner Atticus.
I love it.
And we flew down and my mom proceeded to be a complete fucking monster villain throughout the funeral. I remember we were in the mausoleum. So it's this like long marble hallway with this huge like 3-story arch at the end of the hallway. And I was standing like with everyone in front of like where, everyone was gathered with the chairs. And I look all the way down. So probably like 100 feet down to this huge archway. And she is standing in the archway all by herself, right in the middle, like perfectly framed with sunglasses on, just staring at me. Like even through the sunglasses, I could tell that she was just like boring a hole into my soul with so much hatred and animosity. And I think that was like, I turned to Atticus. I was like, well, that's my mom. And he was like, that's your mom? I was like, yep. Yeah. He was like, why is she looking at you like that? I'm like, because she hates me and thinks I'm a villain. Okay. So she continues to do that throughout the rest of the funeral and then going to your grandma's house afterwards. She's staring at me from across the room, from the doorway. She's staring at me from across the pool in the backyard. She was just sort of low-key following me from afar, just glaring at me, like not talking to anyone, not doing anything, just following me around and staring at me like a horror movie villain, like a stalker.
Yeah.
And at one point, it was gross. And at one point, I went to go get like food or a beverage or something, and I left Atticus on his own. I was like, I'll be right back. I'm going to go get us some drinks. And I went to go get drinks, but came back, I don't know, a minute, 2 minutes later, and he was pale. And I was like, what happened? He's like, well, your mom came up to me.
Oh, no.
I said, what happened? He said, she came right up to my face, like 3 inches from his face, and looked at him and just said, why doesn't anyone like me?
Oh no! Oh no! You are your own answer.
And he was like, and I was like, because of shit like this? He was like, yeah, because of shit like this. He's like, I didn't know what to say. And then she just walked away. I was like, well, that's probably for the best. Anyway, so that's the crazy mom story, is that it was like she was the killer in like Scream or something. She really was just staring at me from across the room, from across the yard, from across the mausoleum, like she just was following me around, staring at me with so much hatred in her eyes. It was so creepy and weird and horrifying. And I know you were there and you saw it. It was,
Yeah. I didn't remember that. And that is the part that really kind of gets me. I mean, it was good that you weren't there for it, but it's like for a complete stranger to get up into your face like that and then say something so intimate and absurd, you know,
yeah,
not even introduce yourself or anything like that.
no. So here's the healthy relationship part. So there's the crazy mom part. Atticus did the sweetest thing. I thought it was the sweetest thing. Again, this is like we were talking about, it's not flowers, right? That's not the thing. So we were back in the airport. We were in LAX and we were flying back to San Francisco. And I remember we were on an escalator going from like, you know, past essentially TSA up to where the gates are. And he had been kind of quiet. Again, it really shook him what she did, as it should. It was super creepy. Like to me, I was like, oh yeah, that's her. But it was pretty creepy. So it shook him. And he turned to me and he said, he's like, I just want to let you know that if you ever need to be anxious or weird or fucked up, he's like, you are allowed to be as fucked up as you need to be. He's like, that woman is crazy. And I can't believe you grew up with that person as your mother. He's like, I apologize if I ever was short with you or frustrated with you as you were going through things. He's like, you are allowed to be as messed up as you need to be because, oh my God.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, thank you, honey.
You believe me?
Like, that's so sweet.
You remember my name?
Yeah, exactly. But it was true. And then he actually followed through. Like he seemed to have a greater understanding or like a greater, yeah, he took that opportunity as a way to have a greater understanding of me, you know?
Yeah.
And I really appreciated that. So,
yeah,
you know,
a good relationship should be trauma informed.
Yes. Well, trauma informed, but also willing to deepen your understanding of trauma if your partner has gone through something more traumatic than you have. I mean, I think that's also important, right? Like, again, that comes back to the compassion and the understanding and then being willing to work on the relationship and learn. Part of that is if you are with someone who has had more significant trauma than you have, do you take the time to stop and not only understand how trauma affects someone in general, but then also apply that to how did that affect this person in particular?
Yeah.
Okay, let's share some tools of how we got through the week. I know we were talking before we started recording that we're both having a little bit of a challenging week in terms of like anxiety and things. So do you have a tool that you want to share?
I do. And it's a new tool. So supposedly affirmations, like positive affirmations, only really work for people who have like high self-esteem. But for people who have low self-esteem, the cognitive dissonance between whatever positive thing you're saying and the truth that you feel about yourself, you know, it creates stress and so it doesn't actually help. So there's an alternative thing, which is values-based affirmations, which is you identify something that you care about or that is meaningful to you. So, you know, I value being present for my relationships. And so yesterday I spent time talking to two different people and really listened to them, right? And I can be proud of that. You know, or right now I'm really valuing not pushing myself and resting. And yesterday I took a nap and that's really good.
Yeah.
Because, and part of it is that like, I think we're always taught to push and push and push, but without this idea that sometimes we have to choose between two good things, right? And it's not a zero-sum game like, oh, I didn't work out today, or, oh, I didn't drink a lot of water. Like, well, you probably chose to do something else that was also something that you really care about, right? Even if it's something that you didn't want to do, you did it for a really good reason,
Right. Or you chose to rest instead of doing something, which is prioritizing yourself, right? If you need that,
Yeah.
I love that. I'm going to start using that because I agree with you. Affirmations just, they feel stressful. Like I can't do them, but I love that. I can name something that's important to me, right? Something that I value that I do actually do. Interesting. I love that.
Yeah.
I think, I don't know if you've struggled with this, but I struggle a lot with the feeling of being proud of myself, like what that even feels like.
Oh, yeah.
Right. So I like that because it's sort of this little doorway into that.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a good one. Okay. I did a little trick the other day. I was feeling very, very stressed about a situation that could have gone wrong in like 5 different ways. And I was finding myself getting really stressed about it. And I think I even wrote to you and I was like, I am playing the who will be mad at me game, right? Like, who's going to be mad at me if this goes wrong in this way, right? And I was doing my best to fix the situation, but I was really stressed about it. And so I just took this moment and I said, my brain, my inner child, my, inner anxious young kid was freaking out. And I just took this moment to stop and be like, hey, I hear you. And I know that you're freaking out about all the ways this could go wrong and all the people who could be mad at you if it doesn't go the way that it's supposed to. And it could go just fine. Like, let's spend some time thinking of ways that it could be okay and that it could be even better than you could imagine it could be. So I very intentionally stopped the anxiety loop. And I made myself think of 3 ways that it could go well. And one of them had to be that it went even better than I expected. Right?
That's great.
Yeah. And so it helped give my brain some other options of what to think of rather than spiraling around the anxiety and thinking of who I'm going to disappoint and how they're going to be mad at me. Right? So, yeah, that's what I did yesterday. I stopped the thought loop and I made myself stop and think of 3 ways that it could work out well because we don't know how things are going to work out. That's the thing. Our brains love to tell us that it's all going to be terrible. And that's a protective mechanism. I mean, there's a good reason that our traumatized brains do that, but we really don't know how it's going to. And sometimes I think unless I stop and very intentionally make myself think of ways that it could go well, like my brain won't go there because it's just so trained to think of all the ways it could go wrong and all the ways that people could be mad at me or disappointed or whatever, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what I did. And then, you know what? It actually ended up working out okay. It was fine.
Right.
Nobody's mad at me. It's fine.
Because most people aren't narcissists.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, so thank you everyone for listening. We, as usual, would love to hear from you. As we're doing more and more episodes and more people are finding us, we're getting more and more messages and emails from people. And every single one of them, like, hits me in the heart so hard. And so, like, even people are just like, I found your podcast and I'm listening to it. Like, even if it's just that, like, it just makes a huge difference. So, please reach out to us. If you're listening, we would love to hear from you. We would love to make that connection. Connections are the cure for narcissistic trauma. So, please reach out and connect to us. Yes. Our email is the letter H, the number 2, the letter B, terrible@gmail.com. That's H2B terrible@gmail.com. You can also find us on Instagram @terribledaughterpod. Message us there. We're on TikTok. We're on YouTube. We have an Etsy store with some amazing snarky, dark humor holiday merchandise that Elizabeth made that is delighting me to no end. So if you need to order some things to make getting through the holiday season just a little bit more tolerable, check us out. The Etsy store is under Heinous Offspring. And yeah, if you're out there and you are finding yourself needing to stand up for yourself in a relationship and somebody else is thinking that you are too needy or you are too much, et cetera, stand your ground and be the villain. Sometimes in order to get the clarity you need on a relationship, you have to be the villain and see how they react. So go ahead and be the villain. Thank you for listening. We'd be so grateful if you'd follow or subscribe and rate and review our podcast on your favorite podcast app.
Make sure to share it with friends, family, or anyone that you think may benefit from this content.
And as a final reminder, you are not the crazy one.